Welcome back to this afternoon session of BioStock Live here from BioStock's own studio in Medicon Village, Lund. This session will focus on Miris Holding, a company with the aim of improving neonatal care. The company develops and sells the product Miris HMA, Human Milk Analyzer, a product that is used to analyze breast milk for individual nutrition of preterm babies. Here to tell us more about the company is CEO Camilla Sandberg. Welcome, Camilla.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Cecilia. It's great to be here. So I will tell you a little bit about Miris, what we're doing and where we are today. So first of all, Miris is a small medtech company based in Uppsala, Sweden. We were founded in 2001 and we have been public since 2006. As Cecilia said, we have today a product called the Miris Human Milk Analyzer, and this instrument is used to analyze breast milk to get the concentration of the macronutrients in breast milk. So that's fat, carbohydrates, and proteins. When the company was established, the first product was actually an analyzer for analyzing dairy milk, the macronutrients in dairy milk. But since 2017, we have not sold this product. We have only focused on neonatal care and the analysis of breast milk. Now, we started selling the HMA in 2006, and we've also had CE marking of the product in Europe. So it's a medical device in Europe since 2006. And December 2018, we received the FDA clearance in the US. So that means Food and Drug Administration in the US approved the instrument to be used for clinical use in the US. We have the instrument installed in all continents in the world, and our main target markets are neonatal intensive care units and donor milk banks. So I'll take a little bit of a step back and tell you a little bit about premature care and why we analyze breast milk. So about 11% of all babies born today are born premature, which is quite a lot. And these premature babies, they have a huge need for nutrition, very high nutritional demand. As you can see here, it says that the requirement is about 130 calories per kilo a day and about 4 grams of protein per kilo a day. Now, that could be a little bit different to understand what that actually means. So if you look at that for a grown-up, for an adult, 70 kilos person, a person cycling Tour de France requires about 130 calories per kilo a day. And for a grown-up, it would mean you have to eat 11 Big Macs per day to get to 4 grams of protein per kilo a day. So as you can understand, it's a huge demand for nutrition. Now, the problem is, because we all know that breast milk is the best nutrition for babies, the problem is that the breast milk is, the content, the macronutrient content is not constant. So it varies a lot between mothers, but also for one mother. So the breast milk or the milk in the morning is very different in concentration of protein, fat, and carbohydrates compared to in the evening, for example. And this is just to show you one of many studies showing exactly that, the content of the macronutrients varies a lot. The problem with this is that the practice today is, or the standard of care today, is that clinicians assume that all breast milk has the same concentration of macronutrients. And this is a problem then, because since it's not, we know it's not, it means that the babies get different levels of actual nutrition. And I will show you this here, if it's possible to follow this. So it's if you have a 1 kilo baby, 1,000 grams baby, if you see to the left where it looks at protein, if you follow standard fortification, so you just add a standard amount of protein and energy, and the milk from the mother has 0.6 grams of protein, you will be off target by 31%. If the milk has 2.2 grams protein, you will be off target with almost 50% plus. And for a grown-up, that difference is 8 Big Macs. So that's a huge difference. The same for energy. If you have milk with 39 calories, you will be off target by almost 30%. If you have milk with 94 calories, you will again be off target by almost 50%. And as you can see in the adults, that's 1,500 calories per intake. So you can see the illustration here of how a grown-up would look with that difference. So this is extremely important because it will lead to malnutrition or overnutrition for these preterm babies. And that can basically give severe effects. So you can have poor growth, you can have visual impairment, developmental disorders. You can also, if you have overnutrition, you will have increase in body fat, impaired homeostasis, or cardiovascular diseases. So this is a huge and very real problem. So our solution to this is that when you do your fortification, instead of doing the standard fortification, which is used in most NICUs, you add a step of analysis where you analyze the breast milk from the mother, which will give you the exact amount of protein, fat, and carbohydrates in the milk. And then based on that, you can easily calculate exactly the needs of fortification for the baby. So exactly how much you need to add of protein and energy, for example. And after that, you obviously do, as you always do, evaluation of the growth of the baby to look at the growth charts, and you will have a perfectly growing baby. So that's what we're trying to teach dietitians and neonatologists all over the world. So just to talk a little bit about the market for the human milk analyzer. So for today, we talk about analysis of macronutrients in human milk. We estimate the market to be about 3.2 to 3.5 billion Swedish krona. And we divide the market into neonatal intensive care units, donor milk banks, universities and research centers, and women and children clinics in Asia. And it's the two first of them that are where you have the requirements of having medical device because it's used for clinical use. Just to touch upon competition, we don't really have competition. There are a few instruments out there that are calibrated against dairy milk. They are, most of them, automated, which is good in a way. The problem is that they use a lot of milk, and we don't want to use a lot of milk because we want every drop to go to the baby. And none of these instruments are medical devices. So per today, Miris has the only instrument that is available on the market for this. Now, since we received the FDA clearance in December 2018, we have talked about the US market for a long time. I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. There are two main markets here. It's the NICUs and the donor milk banks. In the US, there are about 1,100 NICUs, where about 700 of them are so-called higher level. And these are the NICUs that we are targeting, since they take care of the tiniest babies, which really need the target fortification. Most of the NICUs in the US are much larger than the European NICUs. They can be usually around 50, 60, 70, but up to 120 beds per NICU, which is really big. Until now, there has been no equipment available to be able to analyze the macronutrients in milk in a clinical setting. So so in the US, they have used this so-called standard fortification always. But we see very much a trend in the increased interest in nutritional care for preterm babies. Basically, everybody understands that we don't know how much, what the concentration is in breast milk, and we need a way to get it so we can give the babies the right amount of nutrients, basically. We also see the potential for a broader market, term babies with the so-called failure to thrive, for example, and also cardiac babies where you need skimmed milk, for example. And also some of our clients are starting to they want to look at micronutrients in breast milk as well. So that's really interesting. When it comes to donor milk banks, in the US per today, you have 32 milk banks. They are really big, and they can cover up to a whole state. So they have 1,000 and 1,000 liters of donor milk. They analyze also the macronutrient content, but this is because they pool, for example, up to 4 mothers in one big pool, and then they analyze the milk and can label the milk before it goes out to a NICU, which is very helpful for the NICU then, because they then know the concentration in the milk. With the analyzer, they can also do so-called lacto engineering, where they can do specialty products. So if you have a baby with a heart problem, they can produce skim milk. Or if you have a baby that really need an extra boost, you can do cream product, for example. And the milk banks also have started to see quite a lot of so-called outpatient groups that buy milk directly from them. So, and when we talk about sales in the US, I'm trying to explain why the sales process is really long. And the reason for this is that to get into doing breast milk analysis, first of all, the equipment is capital equipment. You have to do an investment. You have to get budget or funding for the instrument, and you also have to implement completely new routines. So Sweden is the only country in the world where target fortification is standard of care in all NICUs that take care of the smallest babies. So in the US, they haven't really had any experience with how to do with staffing, how to do with all the routines in the NICU. And they also have to convince management that it is important to prioritize an investment in nutrition. On Miris side, we've been in the US since 2016, building market, building network, and so since we received our FDA clearance, we have had over 100 requests for quotes, which is a really fantastic since we see this increase in demand for the instrument and the interest for it. Per today, we have 38 HMA instruments sold in the US. 24 of them are in NICUs, as different NICUs, so for clinical use, and we have 4 in 4 different milk banks, and then we have 10 instruments for research use as well. What I would say also is that we are in the process now. We've started establishing a new market. And our first clients that are using the HMA in a clinical setting are starting to get some numbers. So in a few months, we will be able to use them as reference labs, which is going to be really great for new customers coming on board, so they can have advice on how to set things up from other US NICUs. All the neonatologists and dietitians we meet see the need for this, and many of them are extremely thankful that we've actually taken the step of going through the hard work of receiving FDA clearance, since that it's been a huge job. So it's really great to see that what we're doing makes sense for everybody that are actually working with the babies. And I would also say that the Miris team is definitely seen as the experts when it comes to building routines and how to set up staffing, etc., in the NICU. So we're trying to help out as much as we can. Okay, and then I wanted to say just a few words about this year. So first of all, a recap of 2019. Net sales 11.7 million. It's a little bit lower than the year before, and that's basically because we terminated the distribution agreement with China. So if you take out the sales of China from 2018, you end up with the same number. The cost has been quite high in 2019, which is linked to both the launch of Miris HMA in the US, and also the start of especially the ISO 13485 project, which is really important for us to get that certification, and a couple of other projects. So that's why the costs ended up quite high. Wanted to mention also that we had our first instrument based in Singapore, the first in Africa. In Kuwait, we established a distribution agreement for the Middle East. And in Croatia, the first milk bank in Croatia received a Miris HMA from UNICEF, which was really interesting. Now, when it comes to this year, as you can see from the numbers for Q1, we were hit pretty hard because of Corona. And we actually felt the whole Corona issue quite early in Q1. So this is why we were quite quick of trying to look at a plan for what we could do with cost restrictions. And we quite quickly ended up with travel bans and visitation restrictions at the hospitals. We can't get into the hospitals the way it is now because of COVID-19. So we spent time in March to put a plan together how we can save costs until this is over. And from April 1st, we implemented short-term leave, and also put all projects that wasn't completely necessary on hold to save costs, basically. And then we have focused on our digital platform and also social media marketing. I would say April to June then, so far Q2, we have been able to utilize our Miris studio, which we have had for a year now. And we have increased the number of seminars, which is really great, because even if the hospitals in the US, for example, are on lockdown, it's not like they're not working. They're still there. So we use the time as much as we can to advise, help in budget planning, and get people started, and also support clients, obviously. We can even now do online installations. So the hospital will have a technician on their side, and we will do the installation from our studio in Uppsala, which is really great. Wanted to mention also, beginning of May, there was a new paper that came out, which is really important to us, and we're going to talk much more about that in the coming weeks now, as we're doing an interview with one of the co-authors, who is one of our customers. And this is the first large study that clearly demonstrate the importance of target fortification. And this is really big for us. So I'm looking forward to tell you more about that in our social media. For May and June, wanted just to end with that. We can see that the market has started to move. Even if we can't travel and we can't come into the hospitals, we can see that things are happening. And this is why we are actually ending the short-term leave next week, because we need to work full-time. We have so much to do, and which is fantastic. So we're really happy about that. We're still keeping lockdown on cost and having restrictions on cost, just because we're so uncertain on how it will be in a couple of months. So we're trying to keep that. But other than that, we're in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla. That was a really interesting presentation. Yeah, there's no way around Corona.
No.
No, there's not. And it's affected you like it's affected everyone else.
Yeah.
Do you see any long-term effects of the restrictions and what you've had to do to cope with it?
No, I think the issue for us is more that we'll have a delay. I don't think we're going to lose any of the potential customers we have. It's more that it's going, since everything is on lockdown, it's a delay, which in fact, of course it is a problem for us, because we need to come to a place where we are profitable. But this is why we're also doing all these costs on cuts in costs, so that we can survive through the Corona time. But what we see is, we're not losing any orders. We're not, the orders that we had on their way in when Corona kicked off, it's not like we're losing them. It's more that they're delayed. So I think we'll be fine in the end.
And a lot of places are now starting to ease the restrictions as
Yep.
well. Are you starting to see the effects of that? Is it easier to get into the hospitals, or are there
No,
any
we can still not get into the hospitals, and traveling is not really easy either. So we're doing a lot from Uppsala then, but I still think that it's easy to see that people are getting back. They're not working as much from home anymore. They're back in the hospitals. Many hospitals had to put all employees into taking care of Corona and not doing what they're usually doing, for example. And there were restrictions on spending budget, because they didn't know if they needed it for Corona instead. So I think that we're seeing that people are, even if we're not getting into as it was, it's coming into a new normal where people figure out that they need to work as they used to do. Yeah.
And in terms of views, you're saying that it's a delay in orders rather than a ceasing of orders.
Yeah,
Does it
definitely.
in any way affect your financial situation then?
Well, it's more that it takes longer to get the orders in, and again, that's why we needed to cut cost, so we can survive until we're through that, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, because we actually had a question from one of our viewers about that. That it was this Friday, wasn't it, that you announced the end of the short-term leaves or short-term furlough, korttidspermittering, as we say in Swedish. Why did you make that decision now? You were talking about you've seen an increase in activity.
Yes, increase in activity and orders on their way in, basically. So we need to. We're only 8 people. We have to work 100% to get everything going. We have stock, we have product in stock, so we're kind of ready to go, but there is still a lot that goes into all orders, and maintain, support our existing customers as well, which is really important, because we have a continuous flow of consumables and so on, and we need to keep that in shape as well. Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of that, obviously Corona has made it very difficult to have face-to-face meetings and so on. How have you managed that situation with both current and, I guess, potential customers then?
Yeah, we use the Miris studio all the time. So we have quite a lot of seminars, for example. So our sales director, she does seminars so basically she can be in our studio, show everything hands-on. We have the whole setup, how things work, and she has a presentation, and then you can you have 10, 20, how many people you want that can follow her seminars, and they can have interactive sessions then, which is really great. And then we obviously do support, distant from support, and then we can also do the installations as long as the hospital has a technician on their side to do it, actually.
Guess that's maybe a good example of the new normal.
It is, exactly. Yeah. So I'm very happy that we already had established a Miris studio quite a while ago, so we're using it a lot, for sure.
If we talk a little bit about the current market, you said that there's not really any competition in your section. How come? Do you know why no one? Is it a particularly difficult area to develop products in? Or?
Yeah, breast milk is complicated, and so I mean, even Miris instrument came from a dairy market in a way, but the instrument has been refined, so it's calibrated against breast milk. Breast milk is really complex. And the fact that it's no standard makes it very, very hard to how can I say, overcome the regulatory requirements, for example. So it's hard to do. And I think since Sweden is the only country in the whole world where this is done as a standard of care, not many people knew about it before we started really talking about it loudly.
And how come that Sweden is the only country to have done that then? So
Sweden is quite big in neonatal care in general, and there was actually a professor here in Lund, Professor Polberger, who requested to have an instrument that could analyze breast milk from Miris. So he started the whole thing here in Sweden, and several have followed because he was really interested in the nutritional needs for preterm babies, and that's how he got started. Because here in Sweden, they started to see that okay, if we actually target, individualize the nutrition for preterm babies, they will grow much better, and then everybody just started doing it.
And as you mentioned, there's a big study then coming.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about that, or do you want to save it for your
Yeah. No, so that's basically a study that is actually showing, it's one of our customers, Dr. Fuchs, who has been, it's a co-author in this. For that study, it's actually gone over 10 years. So he didn't use our instrument, but today he uses our instrument. He's based in Nuremberg in Germany. And what they can see is that babies that would get milk from mothers that had very, very low protein, they actually grow by 300 grams, which is really, really great. And it's a clear effect that if you target fortify the milk for the babies, they will be much better. Yeah, grow correctly and will have a fewer severe effects then of being born so early.
And in terms of markets, your clear aim is the US market. How come that's what you've chosen to aim for?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been in Europe since 2006. We've been in Asia for a long time as well. The Asian market is not that developed when it comes to the clinical side of things. In Asia, or in China, for example, as a mom, you can buy a test to check your milk, and then the doctor will tell you what to eat, which is not really clinical. But in Europe, we have been since 2006, and the US market is, first of all, nobody else is there. Second of all, the American market is really good at moving quickly. When they get interested in something, they will move quite quickly, even if it still takes a long time to get the equipment into the hospital. They start doing research, publications come out, questions for new markets. So it kind of opens it up in a different way. And you have one country with one kind of set of rules, which is easier than in Europe, where you have differences between every country, basically. So it's the single biggest market we have, definitely. But it's still quite tough because it takes time. But we're starting to really get a grip on the market, and also people are starting that are in this space really start to recognize who we are. So that's great.
Yeah, you mentioned a few other countries like Croatia and South Africa and so on. Are you looking at other markets, but maybe the African market then, or?
Yeah, so we are in South Africa. Africa is not a big market for it right now. I would love for it to be when we're established a little bit better and have more flexibility in how we can work with UNICEF and other organizations, for example. Many places in Africa, they don't even have water. I mean, they wouldn't be.
It's not a priority.
It's not a priority,
no.
Basically. In Asia, there is a lot of interest, and we have a lot of instruments all over Asia, actually. But it was the first one in Singapore, which was fun. In Eastern Europe is coming up, I would say, because they're establishing milk banks. So we have quite a lot in Poland, for example, and other places. So that's really interesting as well.
And as a final question then, what do you see as the next step for Miris? What's your focus for the rest of this year?
So the focus is to be able to manage Corona and still move forward, definitely, especially with the focus on the US. But with that said, it doesn't mean that we don't take care of other markets as well, obviously. We do that, but where we target our efforts when it comes to marketing and doing more the sales interactions, it's first and foremost the US still.
Well, we look forward to following you through Corona and through the rest of the year. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you at the next BioStock Live soon.